Let's start with Paul LePage and work our way across the table. Mr. LePage, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be back here. I'm a graduate of Husson College. I come from the old campus. My freshman year was at the old campus, and my sophomore year was up at this campus, and I'll tell you, it's just marvelous what's happened in the last 30 years, plus years. I was born, raised in Maine, and I spent my life in Maine in business. And I believe that the ills facing our state have to do with the environment that we have created for ourselves to the private sector. And I believe the private sector creates capital and the public sector distributes capital. So in order to get ourselves out of this hole, we need to partner with the private sector. We need to energize the job creators in this state, and we need to change our attitude and be friendly and partnering rather than an adversary to the private sector. Our regulatory system is broken. Our spending is out of control. We have welfare rolls that are unmatched for a rural state. And we just need to get our fiscal house in order, need to bring some common sense to government, and we need to address the issues of energy, health care. We need to reform our welfare system, and we got to get our education back on track. And I have plans for all of those. Thank you for inviting us, and look forward to a solid debate.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cutler.
It's nice to be home, and I would say that it's nice to see all of you, but we can't see any of you. This election is about jobs for Maine people, and we all know that we need a change in direction. I don't think there's one of us that believes that we can risk more of the same or that we can take the chance on a dead-end road. I want to ask you please to remember this. The only wasted vote in an election is a vote for someone whom you don't trust or whom you don't believe in. I know that a lot of you are so worried about my friend Paul becoming governor that you think you need to vote for Libby Mitchell just to stop him. But you're concerned that that will be a vote for more of the same. And many of you are so worried about Libby becoming governor that you think you need to vote for Paul. But you fear that that's going to be a vote for the wrong kind of change. Don't waste your vote. After tonight's debate, after another week or so, 2 weeks of listening to all of us, ask yourselves who among us is committed to the right kind of change and knows how to achieve it. Who has the ideas and the skills, the plans, and the experience to reform our government and transform our economy? Who has the right temperament to find common ground? Who can be Maine's ambassador to America and to the world and to bring respect and jobs and investment to Maine? And who shares both your sense of fairness and your commitment to fiscal responsibility? I'd ask you to put aside your labels. Forget about your parties. Forget about partisanship so that we can get to work fixing Maine's problems, changing direction, and restoring hope and pride and opportunity to our future. And once we agree on how to do that, and once we set about to do it, Maine's going to take off and no one's going to stop us. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Mr. Scott.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm very happy to be here, pleased to be here. The discussion tends to go back to jobs, so let me talk about the fact that I have a jobs plan that has not been proposed by any other candidate. And what it does is it creates employment across every demographic in Maine. We can talk on and on about high-tech engineering jobs and those sort of things. For 16 years, I've worked with leading aerospace companies in this country. I've partnered with my firm with MIT startups and custom circuit designers. And you know, we're doing some good things in wind and other places and at the universities. But that's not jobs across every demographic. We need to bring forward an agricultural economy of year-round food production in the state of Maine, similar to the backyard farms up in Madison. That can happen. It will happen. I am committed to that vision, and I know that the folks out there, you folks are too. How will we create a market? for farmers to take a risk. I'm a business owner. I'm in an $87 million a year marketplace, so I can take a risk. We will produce this food, and it will be served up in our local K through 12 cafeterias. We will displace the foods that we are serving that come from all over this country and in some cases the world. Employment for structural engineers, soil conservation, industrial automation with lighting and the watering process, but also your local contractors, equipment repair. It is the single policy for demographic employment all across Maine, and it's going to create so much wealth. One school alone in South Portland spends $700,000 a year on food products that we know are not helping our children. That's the vision I have for Maine. I'd like to talk a little bit more later on about the high tech, the engineering, the general dynamics, and aerospace, and all those sort of things. I would like to do that. But tonight, it's about agriculture.
Thank you. Mr. Moody.
Thank you. Well, I wasn't born in Bangor and I didn't go to school here, but it certainly is a tremendous architectural, facility and the work that went into it to produce. And the nice thing is that the students are coming out of here and getting jobs in the field. I mean, that's a twofold benefit of being able to enjoy the facility, but also churning out the next generation of young people in theater. I grew up in Gorham. I started a business when I was 17 years old. Kind of realized that American dream. I got into it before I really realized what I was getting into, and at that point there was no turning back. I think the thing I bring, to the race, a different perspective. If you think big, okay, it was the big corporations that kind of ran our financial train off the track. Think back to that. Now, what's coming out of Washington today? We need to do something to inspire and reignite small business in the country. Sometimes you got to think small. There's over 30,000 small businesses in the state of Maine, and if they just hired one additional person each, that's 30,000 new jobs. Small business is the engine of the economy. It's the backbone of this country. I started when I was 17, and I've been over 3 decades. Been through recessions. You remember when we started? It was double-digit inflation, double-digit interest rates, an oil embargo. It was a pretty tough startup. So we know how to run with fiscal discipline, fiscal foresight. We've invested $3 million in the last couple of years. Why? Because it's the best time to grow your business. You can get projects done affordable, under budget, on time, and people need jobs right now. So if you apply that same fiscal discipline and foresight to state government's finances and their physical operations of having lean and green processes and practices, now's the time. People say you can't run the state like a business. I say we can't afford not to.
Thank you. Senator Mitchell.
Thank you very much. It really is wonderful to see you, and I don't know what happened to the lights, but I can now see you. So thank you for doing that. It is great to see so many people who care enough to spend an evening listening to us. But I can't help but respond to Elliot very briefly. He says, if you're afraid of Paul, you'll vote for Libby. If you're afraid of Libby, you'll vote for Paul. Who will you vote for if you're afraid of Elliot? So, more importantly, back to my vision statement. My husband Jim and I moved to Maine in 1971. We were going to stay for 18 months to 2 years, and we're still in the same 1840s farmhouse in Vassalboro, Maine, because my children and I learned that this is the place that we all care about. It's the place that values environment, it values community, it values the quality of life and the kinds of jobs that we need. But we're facing some tough times, and we know that. And how does Maine deal with tough times? The way we've always done, with grit, determination, and vision. We need to restore our economic security, which was taken away from us by Wall Street and by subprime lenders and the mortgage market that has collapsed. We need to get that back by building for the future. We can build in renewable energy. We can invest in research and development. We have the skills and we have the talent. We need to get investment capital back into Maine so that our businesses can grow. And as one who has spent a lifetime fighting for educational improvement, we need to get early education, front and center, stop the dropout rate, and make sure that people have access to education beyond high school. 40,000 new degrees are needed beyond high school in the next 10 years because we're growing into a knowledge economy. Whether it's paper mills or whether it's tomatoes, you need to know how to use computers. It's a very exciting time. It's a very frightening time for Maine people, but let's focus on the hope and what we can do to move Maine forward.